In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 47. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Dickinger.
That's me. I'm that person.
You are that person! And we are here in the Black Library to talk about cool Warhammer stuff.
That's what we do.
Yep. I'm just saying it with more enthusiasm, you know?
Did you not normally say it with enthusiasm?
No, I usually whisper it.
Are you reading that weird self-help book again? The one that actually talks to you?
Look, okay, and Archon gave it to me. He said it would really... look, there's a lot of chapters I skipped. A lot of torture in that book. But, I pick out the small stuff, right?
But was it self-torture, or like the only way you can fill the void in your soul is by torturing other people?
Well, I don't know if you can tell, but as I'm saying this, I have this weird bug creature on my back. It continues to stab at my spinal cord if I don't enunciate with maximum enthusiasm.
That's probably a good thing. We'll leave that there.
Yeah, oh my god, it's so painful. Anyways, there's been a month has gone by, obviously, because that's how time works. I mean, not always here in the Black Library.
It's a loaded comment.
But on Terra, I know this is breaking news.
Terran time.
That's how time works. But basically, this has been the first full month where we have been post-beta rules, basically, of the new FAQ dropping, and there's quite a bit of change in the meta in the community at large.
Yeah, some change you would absolutely expect. Some other change that was more of just like a sidestepping of certain things that we'll get to.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of the new releases a little bit later on, such as Deathwatch and maybe even a little bit of Harlequins.
No, fuck that.
But we're not going to talk about any of those clowns. Literal clowns. But basically...
Not watching us.
Not watching us. Gotta be careful what we say. But basically, it was really cool to kind of see how the meta, as we always call it, the kind of competitive landscape of 40K, how it altered and kind of changed. Now, Andrew and I didn't get to do a full dive into this month because we weren't able to make it to our typical tournament scene that we do every month.
Scheduling is tough.
Our seasons are going to be a little different this month, but we do promise that they are still bad. But basically, this month we weren't able to get out to the regular tournament scene, but we were able to view quite a few games now in the new beta environment.
Yeah, we were following a lot of what was happening with regards to Warhammer internationally, because it wasn't just our tournament happening, and we kind of want to see how the hobby grows and how people react to certain things. And the first thing I'll mention with regards to the big FAQ is that it feels like the elephant in the room was the limit of 3 that people weren't willing to address, but now that it's happened, it's like everybody's kind of like under their breath, like, I guess it's okay.
Yeah, Rule 3 is pretty good.
I guess it's all right, no.
And I gotta say, I think this month we can dedicate it to Mr. Campbell, the god of soup. The Chaos God of Soup.
Yeah, so Soup took a weird sideways direction.
Yeah, I feel like they were like, you know what? I think we're going to see very less Soup now that we've got these new battalion CPs.
That's English right there.
And now, yep, all of that
very less.
All of that, very less. Look, they said it. I didn't, obviously. And also, we're limiting Soup and detachments with that rule. It's going to go away. And then sure enough, all Eldari players were like, hey, that Agents of X strategem's pretty good. Maybe I can figure out how to get some Blackheart
Patrol
Drakaris in here. Maybe 3 Ravagers with some Disintegrators, some very cheap troops. Boom! Agents of X stratagem, baby!
Yeah, I at the very least was happy to see, because we haven't talked about Dark Eldar too much, but Dark Eldar is, back to where they were at 5th edition again, because 5th edition was probably their fluffiest and coolest codex.
Oh, yeah.
But then it was, had things like Ravager gunboats in 6th and 7th edition suddenly lose the ability to move and fire well, which was that was their whole thing.
That was their jam.
But now that they're back to their prime, they're actually, a really scary army.
Oh my god, they're so good. And by the way, I mentioned Soup they need to be part of a Craft World army, but that's absolutely not true.
No.
Just core Drukari, as I mentioned in last month's season, if you didn't listen to it,
Kick
you can go
your
back.
butt.
Kicked the living crap out of me. So They are solid, and that's just not on the Eldari front. There's some Mr. Campbell, Chaos God of Soup, is also dipping his toe on the Imperium side, because thanks to that CP jump on battalions, boy, are there a lot more Imperial Guard battalions just kind of popping up here and there.
Yeah, just taking 3 infantry platoons and then like a cheap command just to get 5 CP.
Yeah.
It's strong.
It's strong, and it's not expensive. Guys, you can get 5 CPs on the cheap for 180 points. That's right. Because I believe it is 1 unit of, like, you can get, like, I think some Catachan fighters or some Cadian troops, whatever. You can get, I believe, a Cadian, or you can get a Catachan troop. I know I'm 100% right without having to double check this, for I believe 40 points, a troop of 10-man troops. So that's 120 points for 3, and then I believe a company commander is 30 points. So 30, that's 60. 60 plus 120, kids. That's 180 points. That is a cheap 5 CP battalion.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was literally a 500-point investment that gives you another 5 CP and some home field captures, like, that would still be a bargain.
And that's like the cheapest. I believe the standard you see is like 3 mortar teams and 2 company commanders, and that's like pretty good at holding objectives, and that's also just pretty solid at putting out some good ranged fire.
Yeah, and we've seen people dip into different regiments, like using, I believe, Vestroyans, because they give better leadership and stuff like that. So, I mean,
Catachans, because they can go up and punch you in the face, because they never skip leg day.
They got muscle
and they're
arms.
all a bunch of Arnold Schwarzeneggers.
You just said punch in the face and then said never skip leg day.
Well, I didn't say. They punch you with their feet. These guys live in the jungle, man. They're Tarzaning it. They're like swinging it through the trees with their feet.
All right.
And their arms.
All right, you rescued that a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. It was my plan all along.
But yeah, I mean, in general, you see less of the intertwined detachment soup, but it's sort of just sidestepped into let's take multiple detachments. Which is more in line of what their intention was
right.
to, like, we want these armies to still be capable of being allies with each other because it's thematic. But yeah, I mean, it's very clear that the jump to 5 CP in a battalion is a big one, and it's a warm blanket. And we're all embracing it.
Loving that warm blanket. It's also so funny that this change has happened and affected soup in this way. In the same month that both Deathwatch and Harlequins came out, which are like the factions that are basically the soup of those specific races.
Yep. You have Harlequins who pull from all Eldari, whether they be Drukhari, Craftworld Eldar, or Exodites, whatever.
Yeah.
They're all Harlequins, and the same thing, Deathwatch.
Which is so weird. They pull from Exodites, and you never see any Harlequins riding dinosaurs. You know what's going on there?
You have to convert them, Jay.
Oh, God, I got to do that. One of the Star Weavers is just a dinosaur. It's a pterodactyl.
I mean,
with the disco ball hanging off its beak. That's how it makes all the laser light show.
Combining Age of Sigmar and 40K, I've seen many a Wraith Knight that's on the back of a Carnosaur. So,
my goodness.
Pretty awesome.
That is pretty wild.
And I think far more terrifying. Like, the big faceless thing, it's scary because it's a walking building, but it's not a Tyrannosaurus Rex coming at you.
But if it rides a Tyrannosaurus Rex, then oh boy,
just too far.
Covered all bases.
Too far. That's a Revenant Titan.
That's a -10 to your leadership. If you take one casualty, your whole unit dies.
You just flee. You don't have a chance.
Jeez.
But yeah, I mean, and same as we were saying, the same thing with Deathwatch. Deathwatch is composed of multiple chapters. You're basically all chapters are required to submit warriors to the Deathwatch for a period of time. I believe it's 12 years is the requirement, that they have to be in it for at least 12 years, and then they can go back to their chapter, or they can choose to stay in Deathwatch.
Pretty solid.
But yeah, it's cool because that in that same way, they're like a special force that essentially takes the strengths of everyone and then combines it into one thing.
Yeah.
I like Deathwatch. They're cool.
Yeah, Deathwatch is pretty neat. Maybe we'll talk about them more later on.
No.
Lies. Foreshadowing.
But then as far as, news and rumors coming out, so it turns out, once again, we're super wrong. Doesn't happen often.
I think we're going to start calling this segment the Jay and Andrew's Poor Predictions.
Yeah, because we're always wrong.
And basically, how you can treat them is...
Sometimes weekly, sometimes a few days away wrong.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're like, this is definitely happening. It's definitely going to be Drukhari and then probably Necrons. Announced, Tau Codex. fuck.
Yeah.
So basically, you can take our predictions and like magic crystal, just flip them on their head, and just that's what's going to happen.
But yeah, it was interesting because originally they were saying they were trying to get all major codexes released this year, and then as time has told, that's probably not going to be so.
Oh, definitely not going to be. I mean, we first heard the rumor, again, being wrong, that they were going to have all their codexes done by their end of their fiscal year, which is like 3 weeks away or something like that. So that's not going to happen.
No.
We knew that wasn't going to happen for almost 2 months now. It's like, yeah, there's no way they're going to just squeeze all these in.
Here's 8 codexes all at once.
That would be insane.
I mean, their heads would explode. I mean, it'd just be too much.
The faction focuses would be out of control.
But yeah, then it's only rumor once again, and it's coming from our mouths, so salt grains.
Yeah.
But I've heard so much as even orcs being pushed back to as late as December.
God, I hope that's wrong. And I hope by us saying it here on the podcast that it will, in fact, be the next announced
that
codex.
GW is listening. They're like, well, we can't have that.
Oh, we can't have that happening. It's the next one,
They
motherfuckers.
can't ever be right.
But maybe we're planning it that way. That's right. Now we're trying to affect the warp.
Game the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's also very clear that a lot of the codexes are being pushed because there's a new edition of Age of Sigmar coming out.
Pretty big elephant in the room that has just kind of exploded through the wall that nobody expected was going to happen. The Ringmaster didn't tell anyone that there was a problem.
He was like, tigers, and everybody's like, there aren't like cages or anything.
And they just exploded through the walls. What a great metaphor we've used here for announcing that Age of Sigmar has their newest edition coming out. And it makes sense. I mean, like, look at 8th edition and how big of an impact it had on 40K. Like, it was like a shot of adrenaline to the heart, followed by 15 more shots to the heart. Yeah. So we're like, let's keep this train going.
Once you do the first shot, then one shot's not enough anymore.
Once you shot, you just can't stop. All that adrenaline.
Wow.
But Age of Sigmar, man, I mean, yeah. They're getting a new edition. I think it makes sense. We don't need to talk about it too much because obviously on this podcast we focus on Warhammer 40K, but it's cool that it sounds like they're correcting some of the bigger things that have been weird for a while.
Well, I think one thing that a lot of us didn't really remember is that even though we had a player's handbook for those of you that do dive into Age of Sigmar, it's super fun, that the game was still essentially an open beta. Yeah. And they didn't really have a full edition. It was more just like, these are as close to the official rules as possible. Play them, and then we'll see how it turns out. Because, internally, you can only test so many times when you throw it into the public, and people are like, broken. You're like, all right.
Whoops. Didn't see that happening.
But that's essentially they used the beta system for Age of Sigmar as the test bed for 8th edition 40K, and now essentially it's done the opposite.
Yeah, 8th edition has tested really well, and now we're probably going to see very similar rules in some capacity make their way into Age of Sigmar.
Oh, one in particular that they were very specific to point out, which is no longer shooting out of combat.
Makes sense.
Which, if that happened in 40K, it'd be probably not the best thing.
Yeah, it also, I think, just like they've done with everything, they're trying to align it as close as they can, right? Not perfectly, it never happens perfectly, but as close as they can to fluff, like interpretation. Like, if a guy's like close range and just like stabbing you in the face, you're not gonna be like, let me just 2+ this guy across the field for a moment. Hold on a second. Like, that's just not gonna happen as effectively.
He has the sword in his stomach and he's just drawing his bow back like it's not even there.
I almost got him. But like, now what they haven't said, at least from what I've seen, is that you might still be able to shoot into a combat. But I hope if you can do that, there's some like
friendly fire aspect.
Or there's some like minuses, like something to transpire from that. But it's still like they still put their own spin on these rules that are still very much Age of Sigmar-y. They're not porting everything over from 40K.
Well, and along the lines of that, I think it's important to point out what we mean by this is that they want to bridge the gap as much as they can because they want their players to be able to
play
not
both.
Only enjoy both, but also understand both very easily because they used to be very different games.
Yeah. And man, I mean, we all know, God, when we think back in the way back machine, or at least how it feels for like 7th edition.
That's what we're calling the time machine from now on.
Yes.
It's the way back machine.
I mean, we never use it. It's over there in the corner. We should use it more often. But basically, I mean, it's technically like that edition, even unto itself, 7th edition was like impossible just to understand just that edition, let alone know that and a whole nother one.
Yeah, well, it's because they didn't try to like It wasn't really a refined edition. It was more that they were just adding everything that they've compiled from the 15 years and just piled on. It wasn't like, we should probably, like, fine-tune this. It was just like, no, more rules. Rules.
So it's cool to see how they're starting to align them. And what I think it'll be interesting to watch as a 40K fan, I think it'll be cool to start watching what they do in Age of Sigmar 2nd edition, or whatever they're going to call it, or new edition, whatever it is, because guaranteed there's some stuff they've announced already that I'm excited to see slowly make its way over in, whether it's 8.5 or whatever the chapter approved part 2 of Warhammer 40K. Like some things like Age of Sigmar has introduced, like kind of like these living spells where like you can cast. They've already shown something called like a purple sun. It looks like this like dope like giant purple sun on a base with like a skull face on it that like floats around the battlefield killing stuff. That would be rad as hell to have in 40K.
Well, interactive particle effects, essentially, in any way. I mean, just like if like there was like a living plasma or something like that, that'd be rad.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
So I'm excited to see. So as 40K fans, even though if you might not play Age of Sigmar, keep a lookout on what they introduce, because as we've seen, it's a good opportunity for them to test what works and what they can port over.
There's always that pairing, so.
Oh, yes. And other news, I mean, there's tons of stuff, man, so much stuff. The Titanicus game, right? Like with the Knights finally was announced.
Yeah.
It looks interesting. I think as we've said before, we're a little bit more
we want that BFG.
Excited about that Battlefleet Gothic. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just sooner.
Listen,
that would be great.
I know probably many of you have, dipped into other games, and one of them that some of you may have tried is the thing called X-Wing. We like X-Wing.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Star Wars is fun. We want X-Wing that's 40K, God damn it.
I want an orc ship that's just an asteroid that throws itself in other ships.
I want Tyranid ships that they just eat other ships.
Necron giant tesseracts. Oh man, it'd be so rad.
Yeah.
I mean, sure they'll start with like Chaos and Imperium, but they'll get some of the other spicier stuff in there.
As far as the Chaos stuff, I mean, they're literally ships from the original BFG that are like, it's just a demon that he's made his lower half of his body the ship.
Amazing.
And he's just like, I'm in space, but I'm a demon, so I don't care.
And I mean, I just love the Imperium ships. I just love that they're just basically giant floating cathedrals.
Yes.
Just like flying through space.
Well, I mean, it's like, because, the one thing that, we try to illustrate as much as we can when we talk about the universe and everything is that there are just immense tracts of time that go by. Like, even like being like, we have to call for reinforcements. Like, it could be 300 years and then you'll finally get it.
Don't worry, we'll send some people there by the time you're dead.
It turns out space is big.
Yeah.
And even traveling faster than light, there's problems.
It's tough.
And it takes a long time.
Sometimes monsters eat you.
Yeah. Especially when you choose engines that fly through hell. So, that's an inherent problem.
Or sometimes you're trying to get somewhere and you inadvertently land in the Black Library and then like take up a job here and then have to...
And sort of like stuck, but they let you out occasionally?
Yeah, let you out occasionally. Sometimes you get a side job with the Inquisition. It's weird, It's weird sometimes what happens in the
warp.
We
always end up back here, though.
Yeah. We'll figure that out
someday.
How
did we get here?
I don't know. Every time I keep trying to figure that out, it gets murky. And then oh God, the bug stabbed me in the back again.
Is it? It's like weird. Every time I try to think of how we get here, it's the way back machine is that's where my eyes go.
Yeah, almost.
Why don't we ever use that?
Why do we always talk about pop culture from like thousands of years ago? It's so weird.
Strange.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll figure it out some point. But anyways, back on track about 40K. So that's a lot of like the big news that's come out. We'll probably talk a little bit more about those codexes almost right away. But now we're moving on to our Seizes of the Month, where if you're not familiar, it's where Andrew and I talk about a big screw-up we had in this past month, typically in a previous tournament or game that we played.
So often.
But since this last month we didn't get a chance to go to the tournament, we've got some very unique Seizes of the Month around list building.
So we've been asked a few times by our listeners to, people that we've introduced to the game and then are like, hey, there's a lot here, help, type of situation where, it's the, dipping into 40K cold turkey I can imagine is just like, there's so much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know.
Imagine this day, like we did it 18 years ago.
Yeah, and it took forever
20 years ago.
Just to compile everything.
And
that's been 20 years worth. I still don't know everything.
That's a lot. It's a lot to step into. And so one of the core things, and I will be uploading an article on our website soon about this, of an intro to 40K.
Indeed. So if anybody is just now checking it out or want to go into the way back machine and feel like you were when you first looked at that Space Marine box and be like, oh yeah, that's what it was like stepping into 40K, you can check it out.
But basically the biggest hurdle to cover, especially if you're trying to play at least somewhat competitively, like you know, it's fun to win. You want to win sometimes.
Yeah, and like I think on this show we try to strike a balance of like, I mean, clearly we've made a lot of ridiculously goofy lists, so I wouldn't call us like hardcore.
We're not the authority
on competitive play, but we also really like to win. We try to make competitive lists if we can.
And I mean, some more than others have had rather good success as of late.
Indeed.
I'm eyeballing Jay.
Hey, look, you know what? I had a good run until that Drakari just came out of the webway and smashed me.
They were like, here's my mop, you're on the bottom, and here we go.
Yep, pretty much. I'm now on the comeback. I'm on the comeback.
The biggest hurdle we cross is list building when stepping into the competitive scene. And we came from a group that was very non-competitive, and it wasn't the right group for us because we wanted to have more of a competitive angle. And when we stepped into an actual competitive group, it was not good.
Yeah, and I think just even a little more context, like when Andrew and I used to play when we were younger, we would go to some local tournament stuff, but we did a lot of play where I'm sure a lot of you do, where like you play with your friends, you go to your buddy's house, you're playing someone's garage or whatever, which by the way is fun, tons of fun. We still do it. But then like we started being like, hey, what's going on with like tournaments we think were pretty good? Let's kind of dip in our toe a little bit. And we actually out here in sometimes when we visit Terra, there was this place California. We would go to this spot, not where we go now for tournaments, when we make our way to Terra, going through the webway. Mm-hmm. Basically, we went to this one local tournament scene, and we were doing pretty well, but it wasn't as competitive as we were looking for. And we were like, man, we must be really pretty good at this game.
Yeah, that was
and
so
then
wrong.
Turns out, not the case.
We went to our current group, which features some of the best players on the West Coast, occasionally some of the best players in the world, and we went there, and for a good, it was like 4 or 5 months, we were just getting like destroyed.
Yeah, we're getting wrecked. I mean, we still do. Like we still have ceases every month.
Listen, I try to imagine that I'm better occasionally. God damn it.
I mean, we repeatedly still, and then definitely then got our butts, asses handed to us.
It was a rude awakening. But at the best, taking the best from the worst is that it was also very enlightening. And it trained us essentially to become more competitive players to the point where we could then go to something like LVO and have, a chance.
Right. And I think what's the important part to think about this is, especially like for us, we're trying to get more involved in playing some more tournaments so we can talk about like what we're seeing out there in the space and share that with all of you. Yeah. And part of that too for us is we wanted to impart on you guys as well, is that especially if you're brand new to this hobby or if you're just starting to check out tournaments, we wanted to give you our perspective because sometimes those first scenarios, especially whether it's a big tournament or a small one, can be like really like daunting and crazy, where you're walking away like, oh my God, I completely destroyed that game. What the heck happened?
It can be very overwhelming.
And like that still happens to us. And for us, we wanted to kind of talk about how we build out our list and how we think about it to either give you an opportunity to maybe think about how you list build differently, or just hear two idiots talk about how they build sometimes good lists.
And make ourselves feel a little better.
Yeah!
So the aspect that I'm going to be talking about is, since I guess I'm going first, walked into that one.
Sucker.
Is I'm going to be talking about overthinking things. So there are 5 things, and we've mentioned this in a previous episode. There are 5 things you essentially want to prepare for when going to any type of competitive tournament. Can you kill troops? Can you score objectives? Do you have a way to deal with combat? Do you have a way to deal with ranged? And can you deal with super heavies? If you can cover at least 3 of those bases well, then you're going to be in good shape. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to prepare for everything, especially now with 8th edition, that essentially anything in a codex is usable. So like you can only prepare so far, but I think the point is that the 3 most important things you want to be able to prepare for are, can you score objectives? can you kill troops, which are the things scoring objectives?
Indeed.
And can you handle range? And the reason I mention that is because combat can be a serious problem, but if you're not getting there and they're just blowing you away, I feel like 40K is still more of a shooting game than it is a close combat game, unlike Age of Sigmar. And therefore, if you can't handle shooting, then you're just not going to have a good time.
Very true. And also, a lot of ways you can mitigate that and make the game more interesting. We've said this in previous episodes. A lot of people talk about this, is making sure the terrain that you play on. So whether you play at home or if you play at a local tournament, whether it's local or big, encourage, whether it's your friends that you're going over their house or a local tournament organizer, hey, let's make sure there's like a good, healthy amount of line of sight. Very important. Line of sight blocking terrain on the table.
Yeah, this is specifically why I mentioned how do you deal with range, is because there's a reason the ITC implemented more line of sight blocking terrain, and it's because of that reason. It got to the point where armies could just sit back and just dish out the firepower, and there's not a thing you could do about it, and that's a problem.
So when you're thinking about how to handle range, okay, if I can't take a punch, right? Like maybe my army isn't super durable, like Custodes is super durable, or really power armor armies typically are fairly durable.
They can take hits at least, whereas you have something like even Drukhari outside their transports, a 5-up save isn't going to save.
It's not going to do too much, right? And now, unless they're covens and they have more durability, but either ways, if you can't find durability in your army to take that first turn punch, then you got to find a way to hide, right? Yeah. Does my army, if I can't take that first turn punch out in the open, do I need to look at transports? Like for me, for Eldari, my elves are very squishy. So I put them in wave serpents, which can take a punch.
Yeah.
Or you find ways through webway portals or things like that other armies also have access to hide them turn 1 to deep strike them.
It's more important to be able to withstand a hit than it is to deal a hit. Because if you can withstand a hit both mentally as a general for your army and understand that everything dies in 8th edition 40K, so nothing is precious, but also from a list building perspective, if your army can withstand the damage, then losing something is going to be less vital than it would be if you couldn't take a hit and you're like, well, that super important unit I had that I didn't think of a way to protect is now gone and I have no way to deal with that thing my opponent has. But the thing I want to focus on specifically, so that was like the 5 core list building mechanics. It's possible to overthink one mechanic.
And this is where we're getting into our seasons. If you thought we were just going to spend a few minutes preaching to you guys about how to make lists, you were wrong.
So it's impossible to be totally impartial when it comes to this game. You can have bad experiences, like Jay getting his butt kicked by Dark Eldar, and then suddenly be like, I need Dark Eldar medicine.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's probably not going to help you overall. They must die. That's okay.
That's overreacting pretty hard.
And that essentially that influence can affect your judgment on how you adjust your army, especially if you're not as experienced with your army, and you may end up overthinking it and making the wrong decision and cutting something that, though didn't behave as you wanted it to the first time, was not the right thing to get rid of. So a faction that I've been working with recently, because it's a faction I've loved for a long time, it's basically an army of Judge Dreads.
Oh, yeah.
And that's Deathwatch.
Woo!
They got a new book. Their book is jawsome. They got a whole bunch of new units. They got new weapons that can wield my favorite rule in the game, which is special issue ammunition.
So cool.
Which
is very Judge Dredd.
It's super Judge Dredd. They all are Judge Dredd. And it's, who wouldn't want an army of Judge Dredds? They're just like, double whammy. Does it? I mean, it's just awesome.
Hot shot.
Hot shot. Yeah. It's just the best thing ever. And I wanted to use them, and I've had these models for a long time. I mean, Jay can attest. I essentially was like, bought all these Primaris models because, one, I think Primaris are really cool looking.
They look so good.
Even though some opinions may vary, I feel and Jay feels they look like proportionate Marines.
They do. They look incredible.
And they're very cool models. And I was like, I want to do Deathwatch with them. But I kind of jumped the gun and didn't wait for a codex, and codex is just trump non-codex armies in 8th edition because stratagems defines 40K at present. Do. And especially with the change to detachments, now that you get with the battalion 5 CP, now you can have like 13 CP, and it's not outrageous.
No, not at all.
So I was building this army, and Deathwatch does one thing exceptionally well, and that's deal with enemy infantry. Like, it's their fucking job, because it kind of is. Yeah. But when you talk about 4-shot general troop infantry, that can wound anything not vehicle in the game on a 2+. That's kind of insane.
What are we talking about that does that?
It's possibly, Hellfire rounds inside of a Stormbolter.
Oh, yeah. 4-shot Stormbolter.
So good.
2-upping anything that isn't a
So
vehicle.
good.
So gross.
Or the possibility...
Now, Andrew, only one person in a unit in Deathwatch can take a Stormbolter, though, right?
No, the whole unit. The whole unit can take them.
10 veterans?
Well, 9, because you want to stick a Vanguard veteran in there so they can fall back and still shoot, because it's like they have fly.
Jesus.
Because they're cool like that.
Jesus.
Yeah, so, obviously, the core we're going to see, I feel, with a lot of Deathwatch armies is going to be standard veteran units with Stormbolters. Now, I as well gave all of them Storm Shields because...
Hell yeah.
Who wouldn't want to pay 5 points for a 3+ invul save that just makes... They're never a good choice.
It's just
like,
so annoying to dislodge that unit.
I guess I have to put mortal wounds on them? Why am I... They're troops.
That makes Reapers even cry. They're like, but my -2 doesn't work.
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
just
Reapers.
It's just so good. Yeah, I mean, with the Reapers with the double shot, strength 5, it's like, well...
And that's usually their jam. They're like, ooh, Marines in a large unit? Here we go.
Yeah.
But at 3++, it's not going to do it.
I always get saves. It's great. So I was like, I had core units of them. I have a unit of Hellblasters. I personally am a huge fan of Plasma. I think Plasma, the design of Imperial Plasma and the whole idea of what it is in the 40k units is just awesome.
And it's finally back to being what it was editions ago before, the whole Grav incident happened.
Yeah.
But it's finally back being like, this is the badass weapon of the Imperium.
Yeah, and with Hellblasters, specifically the Primaris plasma unit, you can finally have an entire unit with special weapons.
Just so much plasma.
Okay, so you guys know I'm a Tau player, I'm a Tyranid player. I like units being able to specialize where everybody has the same thing. It really annoyed me with old Marines and everything to only be able to take one special weapon, one heavy weapon. That's just not my jam. It's just I feel like it mixes their priorities in my brain, and therefore I'm not using them as well as I could be. But then to have a unit like Hellblasters where it's like, well, I like plasma, and they all have plasma, and it's the best plasma. Extended range to plasma rifles, increased strength, higher AP. It's just so good. Oof. And looks rad as fuck. And now they can deep strike.
Oh, teleportarium
so good.
Stratagem!
So I had that. I'm getting off track here, going too far into the weeds.
There was a mistake made at some point.
So the mistake was that I was overthinking what I needed for anti-vehicle. I am a long time, and I feel like this is layover from 7th, and you and I are slightly jaded, where being able to handle knights was a big problem.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have at least 3 dedicated anti-armor units, you were in bad shape.
And not only knights, but also even wraith knights.
Yeah.
All knights.
Any heavy vehicle was a problem in the old edition, and now even bolters can hurt knights.
Yeah.
Which is super weird for somebody who was so deep in the weeds of 7th. But, this is where I keep going around in circles here. So my problem was when I was developing this list is that I had the Hellblasters to deal with armor. I also have a Space Marine and a Salamanders detachment with some of the cool Chappy Dreads that are HQs.
Very cool.
Double last cannons, because last cannons are the best.
You couldn't see him, but he was doing finger guns.
I was doing finger guns. But yeah, to lend me some, non-deep strikers, because you need half your army to not deep strike.
Yeah,
deep strike.
Right?
Back when you could just
some people on the table,
just deep strike a whole army, and you'd have games where turn 1 the opponent has nothing on the table.
I used to run.
Yep, you were part of that.
I was part of that problem.
You were part of the problem.
All I have on the field is 3 striking Scorpion units, and they're hidden.
Yeah.
What do you want to shoot at?
Jerk.
And they're just like, fuck you. And I'm like, yeah.
But yeah, so then you need some stuff, and I need some ranged anti-tank and stuff like that. But I didn't realize that essentially with the Deathwatch stratagems, even a bolter unit can be a serious problem for armor, because you can give them the AP -2 and then a +1 to wound stratagem.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of punishment. Even wounding on 5s, that's still a lot. But if it's not a knight, I mean, you're wounding on 4s against most transports in the game. You're gonna kill the shit out of it. So
yes, you are.
I went too deep, and I was like, I need to have 3 anti-tank units or I can't function. And then like that was, where I was saying where the jadedness can happen with the rule of 5 with the list is like, I was like pressing the button repeatedly for anti-tank. I was like,
you weren't looking at any of the other four.
But what about being able to hold home field objectives? Must, anti-tank. So don't go that deep. Recognize what you have, what you're capable of, and what your emergency contingencies are, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can say, like, with that same example, when I first built out my Eldari list that I'd been using for a while, that did quite well for me for a little bit until a bunch of Dark Elves came in and smashed their faces.
Yep.
And then and then the beta FAQ came in and then blew it up completely.
Yep.
I was running mostly like a troop army. And I only had 2 units that could really deal with vehicles.
Yeah.
And
deal with vehicles well.
Well, yeah. And at first it started out as like a unit of Fire Dragons, then a unit of Dark Reapers, and then it evolved into a unit of Wraith Guard and a unit of Dark Reapers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like in this new edition, truly, and I can say it, obviously people have probably experienced it, I typically run and still run a whole bunch of Dire Avengers with Shuriken Catapults, and if you put Doom on something, it'll kill it.
Rerolling the wound with guns that on 6s are suddenly AP3 turns out is a problem.
It'll do some damage.
For things including vehicles.
Oh yeah. And like even especially if armies have access to some form of like mortal wounds, right? Like if like for Imperium with the Hellfire shells, right?
Yep.
I think is what they're called.
That is the stratagem for Heavy Bolter, yes.
You can throw around each turn. You have a chance to throw around D3 mortal wounds. Psychers, throwing around Smite. Like there is other ways to deal with vehicles now. But that is a good seize. My seize is trying to fit this clowny peg into another square hole. And basically, as of now, the Harlequin Codex has fully dropped. It is available.
Yes.
At the time in the webway, like we said, time is weird.
Wibbly wobbly.
It's in this in-between. We know pretty much all the rules for the Harlequin Codex. It just isn't physically here
Jay,
yet.
we're in the way back machine.
Oh, God.
When did that happen?
How did this happen? I don't remember how it got here.
Harlequins?
Damn it. They're experimenting on us, I feel like. Those sons of bitches.
So that book is out.
The book is out. And it is pretty cool. And I, being a big fan, as some
Space
of you
clowns.
might have heard,
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I love them ninja clowns. It is Clown Town, party time, all the time. Here, especially, and for me, if I get the chance. And I played them a whole bunch when the 8th edition first came out. Loved them, had a really tight list that I enjoyed. As more codexes came out, and the new stratagems and things like that, they started to fall off in effectiveness.
Codex trumps regular army, it just does.
And especially when the Craftworld Codex came out, I was like, oh, baby, there you are. There's my true love. my old lady is there. And I had to return to Craftworld, and obviously I've still loved it since. But now with the new Harlequin Codex coming out, I was like, here's my opportunity to take that love and see a little bit of my mistress.
They basically get put in a mask that was everything you wanted.
Yeah, I got to talk about that. So we talked about before we were going to talk about the codexes. For Harlequins, if I could have like been like a dear space Santa Claus, this is what I'd like for my Harlequin Codex. It is quite literally the mask known as the Soaring Spite.
Yes.
It is. I remember when I was playing it at first, I was like, Andrew, they've got, this is just when the Space Marine Codex, and I believe the Chaos Space Marine Codex had just come out, and they had all started getting these unique chapter tactics, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, man, if there was just, can you imagine if there was a mask that just, your pistols could be assault weapons? Could you imagine? Because then they could do these crazy drive-bys, and it was just like, that'd be really strong. And sure enough, that happened.
Even more so is also you're like, man, I just dump my troops out of my units and they assault something, but then they're like stuck there. Well, it turns out they also got a stratagem that allows them to bounce back into their vehicle.
Into their transport. So and this is all Soaring Spite.
Yeah.
Basically exactly how I like to play Harlequins, which was, and this is my own opinion, but I believe truly to play very competitive Harlequins is you play mass Star Weavers, mass troops.
Yeah.
And with some support from Troop Masters, maybe one, I don't think you do 2 Shadow Seers, but you can. I think one single Solitaire is or you can only do one anyways.
Yes.
That's why they are I believe they
called
have
Solitaires
in their name. But basically, I think you run a Solitaire, you run maybe 1 or 2 Troop Masters, maybe throw a Shadow Seer in there, depending on how many battalions you throw in. But you run
occasional Death Jester,
all Star Weavers. You run all min troops, 5-man troops.
Turns out their troop unit is their most flexible and probably their best unit.
Oh, yeah. And you give them all fusion pistols if you can, because fusion pistols are amazing. And you give them a smattering of embraces, because I think embraces are the... Oh, no, sorry, caresses. Caresses are the best there, and they got a drop in points. Everything got a drop in points. Not crazy amount, but enough where it's like, I could fit maybe one more troop in here now with this drop in points, which
it adds
is great.
up.
It does add up. So basically, for the new Harlequins, I was very much like, okay, I got to integrate these guys into my list somehow, right? And kind of my, I guess, C's for list building is I spent a long time this last month just breaking apart, rebuilding, testing, and trying out new builds with adding and sprinkling the Harlequins into what I've already had, which is my 3 Wave Serpents with my 6 troops of Dire Avengers, with right now kind of adjusting to the beta rules. I can tell you, listeners, that I pulled out the Wraith Guard because the points blew up my list. And I kept the...
Not from the Wraith Guard.
Not from the
Psychers.
From the Psychers, but the Wraith Guard were the casualty of the Psychers being more expensive. But I pulled them out, and basically I looked hard at my list, and I kept the Dark Reapers, and I actually brought in some planes.
Dark Reapers are so good.
Dark Reapers are still good. They're a lot more expensive. I think in our last episode I said 33 points. They're actually 34 points per.
Well, they increased by 7 points, correct?
Yes, I believe that's right. Yeah.
Which they needed.
They needed it, absolutely. And basically, I brought in some planes. I brought in some some Crimson Hunter Exarchs.
So
and
good.
Some Hemlocks. And yeah, I'm really enjoying the new build. But the thing is, now with Harlequins, I was very much trying to fit this army into my previous army. And I'm sure everybody's had this where they get this new toy and they're like, well, I want to figure out how to way to just like kind of keep what I still have, but dropping this huge new toy in there.
Yeah.
And I was finding that it was because the Harlequins are still expensive. So like I was finding that I couldn't really take any of my toys outside of the Wave Serpents and the Dire Avengers, because I found that core works really well for the list, because objective grabbing.
Don't fix something that ain't broke.
And they do a really good job of clearing a whole bunch of infantry, but like the Harlequins are good at giving you a nice solid punch. They've got the fusion pistols, so they can take care of vehicles.
They're meant to be there and be aggressive, and but you need to invest in them.
Yeah, and I was just trying to make it work. And I've come to realize now that after working on this for a month and wasting a lot of time and a lot of tests, is that really I just want to give Harlequins their own fair shake in their own build.
Yeah, I think, it comes down to the thing that you originally mentioned, which was the round peg in the square hole, where essentially you wanted too many toys.
Mm-hmm.
Too many toys in the kitchen, because that's what people say.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this has happened to me with things like Tyranids and stuff before, where I'm like, well, I want Gene Stealer Cult, but I also want Tyranids, and like, eventually you just have to kill your darlings. You have to decide that if you want to play them the way you're going to play them, then they're just going to have to be their own thing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's the best. And again, I'm kind of taking this from the approach. Obviously, I can put Harlequins in with my Wave Serpents. I can play that. I can absolutely, the points add up. I can make that army. But we're talking about coming from a place where the army could at least be relatively competitive.
Also, how you want to play
and how I want to play it. So I think sometimes just kind of bite the bullet or dive in head first, whatever metaphor you want to use or euphemism, whatever that all those words mean that I just said. Pick something that you are happy with and play them in probably their most comfortable environment, which is oftentimes just a new army.
Understand what you want from an army and then build a list around it, because if you don't try and fit it into what you're looking for in the army, then this is happen. We have armies that sit on the shelves because we like the concept of them, but not the way they play. So know what you want from an army and then build that.
Yeah. Now, before we go on to the Brown Library, I do want to talk a little bit about the new Harlequin Codex, because there's a couple cool things I want to highlight. Because it is a new codex. We might
Jay has to get this out of his system.
We might go in depth a little bit more
Bear with
in
us.
A future episode, but just some cool stuff. They got that mask that lets them
we talked about the
advance
mask.
and shoot with their fusion pistols. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about this?
We just spoke.
Really cool thing that you can get with a warlord trait. I'm just gonna call it a couple fun things. Is there's a warlord trait where basically an HQ can disembark after the vehicle moves. So
very far.
You can give like a troop master basically this new relic called like the Kegarock's Rose, which is just a super kiss that like does flat 3 damage to infantry and rerolls wounds, and you can just put it on like a Troop Master or a Solitaire. No, you can't give the Warlord trait to a Solitaire.
Can't.
But you can put it on a Troop Master. Basically, they can just fly up the field 22 inches. Or if instead of giving him the Rose, you can give him instead the Relic that lets the vehicle move an extra 6 inches. So you fly up 28 inches, and then the Troop Master jumps out 3 inches. So you're at 31 inches. And then you can move 8 inches, so you're at 39 inches. And then if you advance at least a minimum of 40 inches, and then you can charge and basically kill whatever you want to kill.
Yeah, it turns out that's a long charge. They basically got a Warlord trait that was like, you know what? We'll throw one Swarmlord in here.
It's
just one Swarm.
Pretty delicious.
Also, they have a pistol that's just downright stupid.
It's a downright stupid pistol. It's a 2-damage pistol that's a D6 pistol, and with a specific stratagem that lets them do 2 shots for every hit they get. A Shadow Seer...
and 3 shots for every 6 they get.
For every 6. A Shadow Seer can, like, go up and just, like, almost like the gun cocked sideways, can just, like, blah, 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 like, just freaking gun down, like, almost an infantry squad.
Yeah, you thought this was just a pistol. Turns out it grabs its ammunition from the warp and fires it faster than human thought.
And, I mean, it could gun down, like, a 5-man Terminator unit pretty freaking easily.
Yeah, it's really quite ridiculous. They got some good relics. I personally really like the mask that the Frozen Stars that has the +1 attack when they charge.
Yeah.
I mean, because Harlequins are already hitting hard enough, but for someone like me, like you like doing the drive-by pistoling stuff. If I was to play Harlequins, I want to do deep strike units that are maxed out with combat and literally are just doing, I like the dance of death, and they just go into units,
tons of guys, just blender them.
And then if they all have caresses, then that's just so much damage.
And if you don't know what a caress is, it's a +2 to their strength with a -2 AP 1 damage, which means it gives them that magic strength 5 at -2 AP with 4 attacks apiece, and with Frozen Stars, they're 5 attacks when they charge.
Yep, 6 on Troop Masters.
Yep, that means a 5-man unit is getting 25 attacks.
It's and then you think of it as a 10-man unit, and you're just like, oh my god.
And if they're near the Troop Master, they all reroll wounds.
Yeah, that's what I want.
It's really good.
You imagine that 50 attacks that hit on 3s? Rerolling wounds?
And if you make the True Master near them a stratagem called the Great Harlequin, they all reroll ones
to hit. Yep.
It's so gross.
That's what I want.
That kills literally anything.
I just want like 6 of those. That's good for me.
It's so crazy.
Just 6 of those. 2 of them will deep strike. The rest will, they'll just like they probably go through those cool webway portals that they got.
Yeah,
now.
Speaking of which, we should talk about them. The new webway gate, the new cool thing that came out. It's okay. I think it's 14 wounds, T8, so it's pretty durable. It's got a 3+ save and a 5+ invul.
Yep.
You can when you deploy it, you can basically deep strike it in 12
it
inches away.
Infiltrates. It appears out of nowhere.
My opinion is for this gate, because it's very risky to put a bunch of stuff in that gate. Now, there is a stratagem that lets you get a unit out if it blows up, but only one. So if you put multiple in there, you're going to lose them.
Need at least 2, probably 3.
I think what would be really fun is if someone literally, like you just said, brought like 2 or 3, and then you make your entire Harlequin army all on the ground. So you save money on all those Star Weavers you don't spend.
Yep.
You just drop 3 webway gates nearby, and you go like, I'm coming for you. If I don't have turn 1, you got 1 turn to blow up all my gates.
I mean, that's my style as a NID player.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, there's 3 gates. You have 1 turn.
Now, is it competitive? Probably not. Is it super fun and unexpected? Absolutely. And I hope somebody tries it.
I mean, everybody wants 60 Harlequins in their face coming out of webway gates, assaulting them with 50 attacks each, right?
Yeah.
That's all they want.
And cinematically, it's really cool to just be like, sir, we just had one of these weird structures. Hold on a second. We've got, oh my God, there's 3 of them that just teleported in. What's that laughing sound? And just like a whole bunch of clowns.
There's weird kaleidoscopic light. My hand is gone. What just happened?
I'm dead. But like, yeah, I mean, so the gates are kind of interesting. We'll see how they play out. They can also be used for Drakari and Craft World.
I mean,
we'll see. I think we might get more use out of them. I don't know. Who knows, right? It's so early to tell. I'm interested to see how they evolve as a actual. But what is it called? It's a fortification.
They have potential.
Yeah.
And I'm sure eventually we will see some very cool strategies from them. At the very least, like we promote with this edition, the best thing you can do for your opponent is give him too many things to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like Ace Ventura, if you've ever seen that old data slate in the second movie where he's got the spear in one leg and the spear in the other leg. He's like,
Which one do I deal with? Who
Yeah.
knows? And that's what those are. Webway gates are like spears to the leg.
Yeah.
You know? They're throwing you off. They're painful.
One hurts, but two is worse.
That's rough.
You can only pull one out.
Yeah.
Damn it.
T8 14 wounds is not easy to deal with.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's very tough. Especially, I mean, like 3+ save with that would already be strong, but also having an invulnerable save, it's difficult to deal with, and it's large. Like we've seen pictures of them. It's taller considerably than a Wraith Knight.
Well,
so,
you know what? This is finally the key to bring Wraith Knights back. I'm kind of joking about it, but I wonder if somebody could actually make.
Could you have a Wraith Knight go through the webway?
Yes,
portal?
you can. Oh, you can. And if you couldn't, that would be the weirdest advertising.
Dude,
so all the advertising is him coming out of the portal.
An army that is literally just 3 gates. This is the core. Obviously, it's not everything.
3 knights, baby.
It's 3 gates and 3 Wraith Knights. That could be a thing. That would actually solve basically all their problems.
I would love to see somebody try that at least. Who knows if it works?
Whoa.
Andrews, the wheels in his head are spinning. I've got Wraith Knights that are sitting on the shelf. I could bust them out, try it out.
That sounds silly. Well,
Yeah.
because, I mean, crossing the board is their biggest problem, and that basically
And
solves
getting
that
shot
problem.
off the board before they can do anything is their biggest problem.
Which, now with the new beta rules, you can't deep strike.
But you can,
but Jesus.
you can pop out of that portal. We'll see. Maybe the Wraith Knights are back. Tune in. Find out. And kind of the last thing I want to call out because of this codex, this was kind of like something cool for me to see just because I love this model. As much as I love the Solitaire, which is still great. He's still good. He gets cool artifacts now.
I believe you're talking about what is the considered to be the coolest model in the game.
And it is the Death Jester. He looks so fucking cool.
It's a very rad model. It's what everybody wants all of the Dark Reapers to actually look like.
Yeah.
If they should.
Oh, if only. Oh my God. But basically, he was like 75 points before, and he
very
was
expensive.
terrible.
He was not great.
And yeah,
I mean, like that's it.
that's it.
The end.
He was a shuriken cannon.
Yeah.
75-point shuriken cannon. He hit on 2s. Oh no! He can shoot characters. Watch out! But like with 24-inch range, so like, oh no, he's really close. Now he's dead. But now he's only 45 points. But really, the cool thing about him is
Such a point drop.
he can get this pretty cool relic called Curtain Fall.
Well, automatically cool name.
Cool name.
Cool name points.
And
GW, cool
holy
name
shit,
points.
is this thing incredible. Now, I think if you use a Death Jester, you just take one and you just give him this. Now, he's got to be the Dreaming Shadow mask, so you figure out how you make that work.
You make it work, God
I mean,
damn
unless
it.
you really love that mask, which is great.
There
I
are
mean,
some
obviously,
people that do. That mass trade is still pretty good.
It is pretty good. I have a preference for obviously the Soaring Spite, but there's tons, right? We haven't
Not
talked about
everybody
them.
wants drive-by pistols, Jay.
I mean, they're just so good. But so basically, with the Curtain Fall, if you haven't looked it up at this point, basically it works just like its regular Shrieker Cannon, which means you can either do a single shot at, I believe, with the Curtain Fall, it's a Strength 6. Oh, no, I think it's a Strength higher. It's Strength 7 -3, 1 damage.
Yep.
And then you have the other one, which is Strength 7 -2, 1 damage, but 3 shots. That's the regular Shuriken Cannon mode. But the Curtain Fall lets you, I believe, reroll all wounds. And its most specialist ability is if you kill anybody with it, for every person, every model you kill with it, you deal D3 mortal wounds to that unit.
Yeah.
Now, you couple that with the Dreaming Shadow stratagem, like we said earlier, with the super crazy shot pistol, you do it for the Curtain Fall, which you can. You
Shoot
can
it
get up
twice.
to 6 to 7 hits if you roll some 6s. Yeah. And then
I mean,
each of
just
the-
regular hits are still doubling what it's normally doing.
and let's say people make some decent saves. It's still -2 if you do the Shuriken Cannon route. And people make like maybe half the saves. You're killing like 3 or 4 models. And then you're also dealing 3 to 4 D3 mortal wounds to a unit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
A Death Jester can just obliterate like a whole Terminator unit. A whole Primaris unit. Just one dude. Just
I see where your focus
blast
is.
them. You know, a whole
You got
Dire
nothing.
Avenger unit, a whole Necron unit. Take that. Shots of my own armies. Haha.
No,
I
not
really showed them.
You-
I'm not biased. In your face. But yeah, I mean, all of those are really rad.
The bottom line is that Harlequins got what we wanted them to get, which is shenanigans. They're a literal killer clowns from outer space army. As Jay points out, Clown Town, USA.
Clown Town is back.
And they can do some really tricky shit, but they also have a lot of fluff. And it's just like, I feel like Drukari, we're going to see Harlequins are going to be back, and they're going to cause problems.
I think they're going to do pretty solid as even just an army on their own. But we're definitely going to see them soup in. Mr. Campbell is going to be hard at work working them into other lists.
Well, I want to see, because like I'm a purist, a bit of a purist. I want to see somebody take a Harlequin army, a solo Harlequin army, and really upset like a tournament and like do really well.
I mean, it'd make me incredibly happy.
People would be like, "Holy shit, the fucking clowns
are back!"
In come the clowns.
And trust me, you'll know when you're about to get hit pretty hard because you're going to see a list that's going to have a Shadow Seer in it, and the Shadow Seer is going to have a relic. That's the, I believe, Cloak of Many Knives.
So it turns out their relics are good.
And oh my god, they're so good. They're called Enigmas of the Black Library, which we live here. We know things are pretty damn
We definitely
good.
have access to them.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about recently, I think in the last episode, that the Infinity Gauntlet is here, and it's not great compared to everything else.
No.
So, I mean, they got some good shit. But basically, just a little tip for you. The jacket or cloak or whatever the hell it's called of Many Knives on a Shadow Seer is pretty boss. Because if you don't know what it does, and maybe the person might not tell you right away, you should inquire.
Should we give this away?
I'd like to. Because it's so deliciously mean. But it's so fun. And I know some of the Harlequins are looking at me like, don't give away these secrets. But Cloak Dagger of Many Daggers, whatever the fuck it's called. It's got a lot of daggers, right? It basically works that if you attack a model that has this and you roll only ones to hit, you get dealt a mortal wound for every one to hit. Now, that sounds bad already to begin with.
Yep.
But if you put it on a Shadow Seer...
This is for combat.
This is for combat, in close combat, not shooting. That'd be crazy if the knives could, like, fly across the field. But basically, if you're in close combat with this, what a Shadow Seer does is a Shadow Seer sees a nice big unit of characters, right? Maybe they're running up to a unit of Dire Avengers, or a unit of Homunculi.
I totally believe you're
or a unit of Necron Warriors.
It's totally genuine.
Yeah. And also maybe,
some Space Marines.
Some Space Marines are like, guard... We're a bunch of cultists, shitty cultists. But basically, they run up and they charge that unit. But beforehand, in the psychic phase, the Shadow Seer throws 2 psychic powers on itself, or one on the unit and it's charging and one on itself. It use Fog of Dreams and Veil of Tears, which I forget which one. One of them...
Veil of Tears is for your own units. It inflicts a -1 to hit that unit.
And Fog of Dreams makes the enemy have a -1 to hit you. So... You're going into close combat, and you're a -2 to hit, and then you use lightning fast reflexes, a stratagem that makes you also another -1 to hit.
So you're -3
to hit. -3 to hit. So this entire blob must attack you. Now, sure, they will try not to get everybody into close combat with you.
Yeah.
But
every 4?
Any 4 or lower is a mortal wound back. And
also,
that's pretty crazy fun.
Also, a miss.
Yeah.
Any 4 or lower is not only a mortal wound back, but they're also... missing
they're
target.
missing killing the target, and the target's just spinning its like little staff, just smashing everybody as they're killing themselves on your knife weapon.
-3, which -3, sorry, which means that anything that
actually
hits on a 4+ can't even hit it.
So even most of those units that you charge that only hit on 4+s can't even do anything. So they're just killing themselves. Oh my god.
That's rude. That's just rude.
You see a Shadow Seer with that Cloak of Many Knives, be prepared.
Shoot the shit out of it quickly.
Kill a bunch of your stuff. So guys, that was our coverage of Harlequins. And now we're going to get into the Brown Library. I feel a lot better getting all that clown talk off my chest. I think also we earned ourselves maybe a few more months of like free rent, I feel like, right? If we're talking them up here on the podcast.
Do we pay money?
Wait, you haven't been paying? I've been paying for months. Have I been paying for both of us?
With what?
Oh, well, I found all this teeth, and I thought orc currency still carried currency in.
They don't have like exchange rates.
They don't? That's what I thought, right? You know how you can be like, well, I got all these old dollars and bills from this other country. I can probably use them and exchange them here. I mean, they've been taking them. I don't know what they've been doing with them. They have been laughing every time they took them. But, they laugh a lot. So what am I supposed to know they're making fun of me?
They're definitely making fun of you.
Damn it.
I mean, they're definitely like this, all the torture stuff suddenly makes a lot of sense that it's all given to you.
Yeah, that must be the trend. Also, do you think they're going to be upset that I just gave away all of their Enigmas of the Black Library secrets?
Didn't we receive a memorandum? Don't talk about that room.
Hold on a second. Is that what this is? Oh my God, it is. Well,
Jay, you've been holding it the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I had it in my pocket. I wasn't going to read it. I mean, it said urgent. Don't record until you read this. But, I'm pretty bad at following directions, so here we are. Guys, it's the Brown Library segment. It's where Andrew and I talk about a list or maybe an underused unit or a request from one of you wonderful people that you want to see something worked into a list, and we craft it for you.
Now, this was partially influenced by one of our listeners, but it was also my own creative spin on it.
Ooh, a little creative spice, a little creative license.
So we had a listener who wanted us to try aggressors in a different light, because aggressors, they're used occasionally, but it's really only ever seen with raptors currently.
But what are they doing on the weekends, right? When they're not at work. What do they do at home?
Are you trying to broaden the portfolio or something? They do one thing, Jay. They kill stuff.
Oh, but they're people too, right? Outside of those giant gauntlets? Maybe not.
Maybe not. So this list was partially influenced by one of our listeners. His name is Valhalla 130.
Thank you, Valhalla 130.
Now, he's been an active contributor, specifically on our thread as well. He has ideas. Some of them good.
Ooh. Shots fired at you. Take that, listeners. That's what you get for submitting ideas.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
What are you thinking?
So Valhalla wanted us to talk about a unit specifically called Aggressors. Now, if you don't know what Aggressors are, they are a Space Marine unit that's part of the new Primaris line. And they're in an enhanced anti-infantry, fuck you, so many shots suit.
Yeah, it's weird. That's the full description of them.
It's a weird acronym, but you guys can figure what that acronym is. I can't remember.
It's a really long acronym.
But what this unit does is they specialize in close range anti-infantry firepower. They have a ton. Their guns are basically super bolters, super assault bolters, and then they also have a multi-grenade launcher on it, or you can exchange both of those for a massive flamethrower system.
I imagine the Adeptus Mechanicus guy was sitting in the room and it was but what if we gave him too many guns? It's but how would he carry both? They would be under 2 giant gauntlets, and that would be perfect to complement some missiles. And it's we're giving him missiles too? This is supposed to be a forward assault dude. He's going to have 2 tanks on top of him. It's yes, I will make it work.
And it does, because they also have a rule that if they don't move, they fire twice.
Yeah, these guys are, they're pretty fucking live.
Wow, full circle. And I know at least at LVO, you were on the receiving end of a unit.
Oh, baby,
of,
was I. That unit hurts. I remember when the player was rolling dice, he had 2 units of 6, so 12 of these bad boys on the board. Each unit was dealing
it was 140 shots?
It was 140 shots, 130 shots, something like that, between all the missiles and all the bullets. I was what the hell are you doing rolling all that dice? And he's oh no, this is just half of the shots. I'm what? It's insane.
So we're going to be doing an interesting spin on aggressors. Now, we're not going to be using them in the Space Marine Codex capacity, even though Valhalla suggested, dare he, that we use the Imperial Fist stratagem on them.
What? Never! That's what you get for your ideas.
Dare you. No, instead, we're going to one-up you, and we're going to put them in something that makes them slightly more ridiculous.
Ooh.
And it may be an army we just talked about.
Ooh.
Deathwatch. So Deathwatch did something very interesting for aggressors. And the very interesting thing it did was, one, it made them a troop choice possible. So aggressors with objective secured, which is silly.
Yeah.
But then it also gave them the ability to, I guess it was 3 things that it gave them. It gave them the ability to be in a mixed unit, including being able to throw a guy in there that allows them to fall back and still shoot. which is kind of like
pretty amazing.
All right. And then for a close combat, close range anti-infantry unit that now can't get locked down in combat, that's interesting. And then it also gave them access to deep strike, which is just like, all right. I mean, that's a thing. That's a thing that happens now.
Pretty amazing.
So what you have to do with Deathwatch, if you haven't seen the codex, is that you essentially, your core troops have two choices. You either take the original veterans, and the core veterans are regular Space Marines, and you can throw in, just like this unit, it can be a mixed unit of different things like veterans and Vanguard veterans and Terminators and they all apply different
And they all
abilities.
give like cool new rules and stuff.
But just the fact that you could have a mixed unit with all these heroes essentially was very cool. Well, Primaris got the same treatment. Now a unit of intercessors is not just intercessors. You still have to take the min 5 intercessors.
This
which
ain't your G-Man daddy's intercessors. Oh, no.
No. And I mean, core 5 intercessors, especially with special issue ammunition, are actually pretty darn good.
Oh, yeah.
So you take your core 5 intercessors, but then you can have 5 more models that can be in any combination of more intercessors, hellblasters, aggressors, or inceptors.
Pretty sweet.
So hellblasters, as we mentioned before, the plasma guys. Inceptors are basically like super jump troops.
Super jumps.
And they've got giant pistols. You have to call them pistols because they dual wield them. But they're like the size of a man.
Yeah.
They're fucking huge.
They're huge.
And they dual wield them like this is my this is like a Tuesday for me.
I mean, yeah, man, the Primaris Space Marines definitely, they hit the gym hard with the fact the aggressors can run with so much shit on their back and they have no minuses or penalties.
They never skip body day, Jay.
They never do. And I mean, Hellbastards are, that's what I'm going to call them now, the Hellbastards. The Hellbastards and their Plasma Bastard cannons. I mean, those guys, those guns are massive that they carry around.
They're huge. I mean, they're as big as the man carrying them.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But so, just like the original Veterans unit, these different models or units within this mixed unit apply different abilities. Now, the Hellblasters actually don't grant anything other than the fact that they're a fucking Hellblaster protected by regular intercessors.
That's the special rule. It just says, what do you want? They're a fucking Hellblaster.
Yeah.
And you're like, hell yeah, they
You're
are.
like, I can't argue with that.
Can't argue.
And
also this kind of gives what a lot of people have wanted for a while for Primaris, where I know, we talked about earlier how you really like a focused unit. Some people also wanted a little bit of that old Space Marine feel of, hey, I kind of want to be able to have a plasma gun in my unit of 5 Space Marines, and I can't do that with intercessors. They just have variable bolt gun capabilities. So now you can drop a Hellblaster in there.
Well, and it's that 1-up level where essentially you can get it in any variation you want.
Oh, yeah.
But then you also get the wicked cool fucking special abilities that they all give. So aggressors specifically give you the ability to advance and fire assault weapons without penalty, but also move and fire heavy weapons without penalty.
So good.
Which you're not going to get many heavy weapons in that unit unless you take also Hellblasters with the heavy plasma incinerator. But the Inceptor does exactly that. This is the super drum guy with the double man-sized pistols. Does the same thing as the Vanguard veteran version in the regular troop unit, which is he gives the unit essentially fly.
Yeah.
They can just fall back from combat and still fire normally with a unit that does that.
And is it a -1 to hit, or is it just normal?
No, it's like fly.
Jeez, so it's just better than a Ultramarines chapter
It's just they just can't get locked.
Jesus.
They're just they do what they do best every time, and especially when it's a unit of aggressors that deal the best damage at close range. It's not good.
Now you can't teleport those aggressors in close, can you?
Yeah. Deathwatch got an awesome stratagem. It's basically the best webway portal. Fuck you, Eldar.
No! My pointy-eared soul! How dare you?
Where Eldar Webway Portal essentially allows you to either deep strike 1 unit for 1 CP or 2 units for 3 CP. Well, Deathwatch got the Teleportarium where it's 1 to 3 CP. Every CP up to 3 allows you to teleport a different infantry unit or dreadnought.
Ooh.
Yeah, you can just deep strike 3 Redemptor dreadnoughts, which
just
is already
throw some
silly.
dreadnoughts out of space.
Yep. I mean, they just appear. They weren't there a second ago, and there's a tower-sized, building man in front of me, and it's firing weapons.
Basically, like, I just noticed you put a personal teleporter on that dreadnought. Yes, I did. I showed him some space.
Yeah, that actually describes it very well.
Look, that Adeptus Mechanicus guy has got a lot of interesting ideas.
This unit does a lot of interesting things. The way we're going to represent it in this list, because it's awesome, is we're going to focus them primarily on the anti-infantry capability, and have it as 5 intercessors. They all have just bolt rifles because, in my opinion, the standard bolt rifle is still the best option for special issue ammunition.
It's solid.
It's a 30-inch rapid fire. It already has -1 AP. And then you can make it -3. You can have a -1 with a 2+ to wound, or you can make it -2 with an additional range. It's very flexible.
Oh,
it's
yeah. You can make it 36 inches with a -2. That's so freaking good.
That's solid. That's very solid. And, when you take into account that Deathwatch also has, the +1 to wound stratagem, and then also take into account that they get automatically army-wide, get to a reroll 1s to wound against something, and then if you deep strike a captain with them that has the relic, this tome, that allows you to pick another rerolled 1s to wound something, it's man.
It's good. Pretty good.
This unit has the 5 intercessors with bolt rifles. We decided to stick the auxiliary grenade launcher in there because it's like 1 point. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Allows them to do a 30 or 36-inch range crack grenade, which is pretty good.
Super fun.
You have 4 aggressors in the unit because that's so much firepower.
Oh, yeah.
And we have 1 Inceptor with double plasma death dealing ridiculousness.
So you can hit him with that plasma and leave combat.
Because you get the ability to leave combat. The Inceptor essentially has the plasma weapons, which are 18. I should point out that the potential here is that everybody at 18-inch range is in their money zone type of situation. In Inceptors, it's more like 15 inches, but it can be 18 inches if they, decide to get 6 and, add 1 AP.
I don't know why. I just envisioned a watchmaster training new recruits and be like, see this zone here? Called the money zone.
The money zone.
That's where you want to be. Why is it called the shut up?
So we've decided to take this unit, multiply it by 3. That is your core troops for this Deathwatch Battalion. So that's 3 units. They're going to deep strike, so we're going to spend all 3 CP on them. Those are deep striking, so they can't be touched until turn 2 when, holy fuck, that's so much firepower.
Yes.
Also, here's the key. We have 5 of the core troop, the intercessors. They're T4. But the 4 aggressors and the Inceptor are T5, which now makes the unit majority T5.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I forgot to mention this on aggressors, but they all have power fists. The guns that the weapons are mounted on, it's a fucking power fist.
Super gauntlets.
So they essentially are also really mean in combat, but then can also leave combat and then still fire at point-blank range. Everything in the unit is 2 wounds. It's majority toughness 5, and they all have at least a 3+ armor save, which is really good. Yeah. And there's 3 units of that.
I can see why now they didn't give intercessors access to storm shields.
Yeah.
Because that would be, man.
Also, why?
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Also, why they didn't give aggressors access to special issue ammunition. Right. Because fuck, that would be stupid.
Holy shit.
So those aggressors are each shooting just from their bolt weapons, 6 shots each. Mm-hmm. So that's 24 shots right there.
Pretty good.
Then there's another D6 shots with the frag guns on top of that from each of them. Then you have the 10 shots from the regular guys or the auxiliary grenade launcher and the 8 shots. And then you have all the plasma shots, multiply it by 3. Then you're going to deep strike with them because it's so fun. You have 2 watch captains. We didn't use a watchmaster, and there's a reason behind this. It's because the stratagem only allows 3 units to deep strike. Now, how do we get around that with our HQs? We give them jump packs.
Oh, yeah.
And now they can deep strike. So they don't need the stratagem. So we have 2 watch captains that's going to go with this, oh, fuck, it's in my face shit. Mm-hmm. And the watch captains, one of them will have the relic, which is the tome. The other one is going to have the relic, and we don't normally do this, but the one has another relic, although we did just talk about how good the Harlequin relics are, and if you used it, you'd probably use 3.
Live whatever life you want. You want 2 relics, you want 3 relics, you go for it, man.
We're going to give the other one the Beacon Angelus. And the reason why this is so good is because if you don't know what that relic does, it allows a unit to essentially teleport to wherever that HQ is, anywhere on the board.
That's pretty good.
So if you decide you want to drop 2 of them with one watch captain at this side, but then you kind of dealt with that flank and that flank is gone, the other watch captain needs some help, he has a jump pack, he jumps out of combat, you Beacon Angelus, and there's suddenly a unit with a whole bunch of aggressors and shit right
next
there.
to him. Because it's end of turn, right, when you Beacon Angelus?
Yeah.
End of movement.
It's end of movement.
Yeah, so you can, after he does, like, even if you want to get farther away, he can, basically fly away and then also advance. So you get some pretty good distance on him.
Yeah, he can. This allows you a lot of flexibility for where you throw these things, and I mean that's so much firepower. And then if you want to, like I said, you can just decide to plant your heals with the aggressors, and then they can double shoot.
Ooh.
Or after the turn they come in, if they're not charging you, and shit's in range, you might as well just plant your heals and fire, because they have 2 choices essentially if their units are in range. They either charge you, and you don't get the double shoot, but you still leave combat and fire.
Yep.
Or they don't charge you, and then you're just standing there double shooting.
Yeah, it's not a lot of good options.
There's not good options. And when you do charge them, you're charging into that Overwatch, assuming they can Overwatch. And then there's also 4 guys with Power Fists there. So the options aren't good. And then they're also backed up by 2 watch captains, which the watch captains are giving them reroll 1s to hit. And then, with the abilities reroll 1s to wound. And then you can give them the whole unit +1 to wound against a certain type. And
it stacks up to being incredibly mean.
It's real mean.
I mean, especially if you're with the intercessors, if they're using their special issue ammunition on the 2+, and you give them the reroll 1s to wound, like, they're basically hitting with almost every shot that they hit with.
Yep, hitting on 3s with rerolls 1s and wounding on 2s with rerolls 1s.
So nasty. Sorry, I meant to say they're wounding with almost every shot they hit. Like, that's crazy.
I mean, they're still basically hitting on 2+ and then wounding on a rerollable 2+.
Not bad.
Which is very good. And with a stock AP -1, which is very strong. Like, that's the key to the intercessors of why I think special issue ammunition is, like, changing the game with Primaris.
Yeah.
Is to have a base weapon that's already AP -1. When you think about wounding the big stuff that has 3+ saves, making it suddenly a 4+, but wounding on 2s is a big deal.
And I think, and again, the codex has just come out, so it might be a little bit too early to tell, but I would bet, making one of our classic predictions, that I think we're going to see a lot of Deathwatch making it into at least some form of a detachment into a lot of Imperial units. Like, I think before we saw quite a few Grey Knights, strike squads, because Grey Knight strike squads with Stormbolters were very good at clearing chaff. I think we're going to see a lot of that coming from either veteran squads or these aggressors. Like, we're going to see a lot of this stuff being used with the Teleportarium strat.
No, and the cool thing about this as well is some things I forgot to mention. First of all, let's remember how durable this unit is. It's a 20 wound unit that's T5.
That's a lot of wounds.
With 3+ saves, assuming they're not in cover. Like, that's strong. That's already strong. They're also Space Marines, which means you have the option to combat squad them. So if you want to, you can leave all of the intercessors at home to guard the home field.
Yeah.
And then just deep strike 4 aggressors with an Inceptor 3 times.
Nice.
Because that's not mean enough already.
Yeah.
So how do we complement this? Well, we have 5 things that we know are deep striking. So I just this is actually a very close amalgam to the Deathwatch list that I'm making. So we have a Space Marine Salamanders Battalion. And in this list, we have 3 Chaplain Venerable Dreadnoughts. Now, this is a Forge World unit, which I know people have apprehension about it, but it's a real easy, conversion to just get a Chaplain or a Venerable Dreadnought and make it a Chaplain guy.
Yeah.
And the reason these are strong...
And Chaplains are just way more gung-ho about, smashing.
They love smashing.
And killing.
It's the thing.
And rallying people to smash as much as they love to smash.
They're like, hate them, but I don't hate them, but you should.
But you do.
But you do.
Pointing a giant cannon at their... I do now. Yes, definitely do. I feel much better about this.
So we have a Salamanders Battalion, because this is 2 battalions, because 13 CP is a real comfortable place.
It's very nice.
Especially when you're spending 3 CP to deep strike, and you're spending 1 CP for the extra relic.
Yep.
Which is very useful. Now, you don't have to take the extra relic. You also don't have to spend the CP deep striking if you don't want to, like if they're going to come at you. But the option is there, and that's the beauty of stratagems. So in this Salamanders battalion, you're like, salamanders? Why would you take salamanders? Well, first of all, because they're cool.
They are.
And Jay and I like them.
Yeah,
a lot.
That's the only reason you need. But maybe also the rules are good.
So we just took 3 units of scouts. Now, there is the points available as our troops. You can take 3 units of 5 scouts. There is points available that we could give them heavy bolters if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Because then you can use the Hellfire shell stratagem with Space Marines.
Indeed.
Deal some D3 mortal wounds, smattering occasionally. But we just took them at their core level. And then our HQs are 3 Chaplain Venerable Dreadnoughts. Now, why are these good? They're good for a number of reasons. The first reason is their 9 wounds and their characters, which means it's a dreadnought that can hide.
Suckers!
Big deal, especially since our fuck you units really won't be able to deep strike to their full effectiveness until turn 2.
Right.
Which,
unless, for whatever reason, you're playing like Harlequins.
Yeah.
And they're like in your face.
they're
turn
already
1.
there. And then you're like,
oh, okay,
I'm just gonna
perfect.
go in my deployment zone, and then it's all solved.
Turn 1. Thank you very much.
So yeah, that option is there, but we need things that can survive. But we could use a little bit of help with anti-tank. So all of these Chaplain Venerable Dreads have a Dreadnought Close Combat Weapon, because they have to take that. That has a built-in Storm Bolter. And then they have a Twin Last Cannon. Now, the reason that we give them a Twin Last Cannon is because, 1, it's 48-inch range, touches anything on the board, basically. They can't move and fire without penalty, but they have a 2+ to hit that doesn't adjust as they take damage.
Which is nice.
Which is very strong. They also, because they're salamanders, during the shooting phase and the combat phase, get to reroll 1 hit and 1 wound. Now, with a 2-shot weapon that's normally hitting on 2s, if you move, it's hitting on 3s. You get to re-roll 1 of those. It's very accurate. And then since it's wounding everything in the game on 3s or better, then you get to also re-roll the wounds on 1 of them. So it makes a highly accurate anti-tank platform.
Yeah,
which
pretty
is
good.
Also strong. It's also a dreadnought, a Chaplain Dreadnought, so close combat, like, that's not a good idea.
It's mean. Unless
you can kill it. And these things are really durable. They have a 5+ invul save, and they also have a 6-up, essentially feel no pain. They get to shrug off, damage on a 6-up. So as a 9-wound character with a 3-up armor, a 5-up invul, the 6-up feel no pain, and these fuck you guns, like, they're hard to deal with.
I've just realized, as you were just saying, feel no pain, it's amazing how, like, even though we've been almost a year totally into 8th edition,
it will always be
we'll
feel no
always
pain.
still say feel no pain, or we'll always say deep strike.
Yeah.
There's got to be new people coming into this, and maybe even some of you listeners who are like, what the hell is feel no pain? It's what the hell is deep strike?
So
right?
we used to have these things called USRs, or Universal Special Rules, that basically, if you had a rule that shrugged off wounds, it was just universally, no matter on faction, called feel no pain.
Yep.
And if you had an ability that allowed you to strike from the skies or teleport in or whatever, it was called deep strike.
Which I think we've called out before in a previous episode. But yeah, so just filling you in case if for episodes you'd be like, what the heck is a feel no pain? And you're brand new to Warhammer.
So that's the list.
Okay, so what is this list called?
Well, I think appropriately it's called Too Aggressor, Too Furious.
My God. Too Aggressor, Too Furious. That was a song, I believe, for the original movie, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a thing.
Man, Too Aggressor, Too Furious.
But, like, you think about this. Like, let's just round this out. You have great anti-infantry. You have good anti-tank. You actually have nasty close combat because you can charge with those units.
Yeah, and punch people.
4 power fists. You have 2 captains, or who are, shield hammer captains.
Yeah.
And you have 3 venerable, awesome dreadnoughts. Like, it can actually do damage basically in any road.
Yeah, I like it. And I mean, aggressors teleporting in. That's just, oh boy.
It's a new can of worms you got to deal with.
That's so mean. Wow. Well, Valhalla 130, thank you for sharing your idea of seeing more aggressors. Sorry.
I hope it satisfied you.
Sorry that we didn't do it about Imperial Fists, but maybe we'll do another episode about Imperial Fists. But still, I think we can all agree that we got our aggressor on, and that it was
12 aggressors.
Pretty fun.
That's tough.
And Deathwatch, I mean, how can you not talk about them? They're new, they're sexy, and I just love the fact that I think this codex really did them like a solid.
It did.
And
it made them what they should be.
And I think Deathwatch for a while were struggling a little bit, especially in index form. So it was awesome to see them come out of the gate with some really cool tools.
The last thing I'll point out, it's funny we didn't mention this, is that, with the new rule of 3, Deathwatch is actually the only faction that totally fucking bypasses that. Because you can just chuck those rule of 3 units into their troops.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Well done, Deathwatch. They had a plan. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. That was episode 47 of Roll to Seize. We'll be posting a new episode of this segment every last Wednesday of the month, with episodes of Dark Heresy the first and second Wednesday. And if you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. And you can email us any questions at rolltoseize@gmail.com or your ideas for what you want to see out of a list.
Maybe.
And maybe we won't change it or adjust it slightly. Of course, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram for tournament model picks at partialarc. And guys, very soon, we're happy to tease here a little bit. There's going to be some exciting news in how Roll to Seize and parts of the show are going to change in the future with some very exciting additions. If
cool stuff.
Games Workshop can do a new edition, then maybe we can do a new edition as well.
We had the idea first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We think. I mean, time stuff, right?
Time's
we
weird.
Explain it with time travel. But keep a lookout in the coming months. We'll have some exciting announcements coming your way. But as always, thanks for listening and see you next month!
Ah!